Welcome to Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. I'm Lori Falk, and together with my three powerhouse co-hosts and a slew of thought leaders and luminaries, we're bringing you a scintillating talk show style podcast that will disrupt the worlds of wealth and wellness as we know them today. We invite you to go on this journey with us as we offer you a paradigm shift that empowers you to change your approach to these key areas of your life. Join us and discover the truth that the future of wealth and wellness begins with you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. I am Jenny Dangerfield, and I'm here with my amazing three co-hosts, and we are bringing you a very interesting topic today that really kind of explains a lot about where we are today in our healthcare or sick care system, where we've come from, where we're going, and a lot of the tools that we talk about. I think it's important to give a little bit of a background about where it all kind of started, because it might not be what you think. So I wanted to just dive in a little bit and again, talk about frequencies in a way that we haven't yet discussed. But I'm going to start back about 5,000 years ago. The Chinese first discovered, or they not even discovered, but they first recognized the human body as an electrical being. And this was very profound because this led to a lot of things that we know today that we might take for granted and consider to, be something that's very alternative. But actually, this is kind of getting us back to our very nature, like acupuncture. The Chinese started acupuncture, and it was about 5,000 years ago that they started recognizing that certain points on the body were connected to different energy pathways, and that allowed us to open up these energy pathways and to create more flow in the body, what we know as chi or life force, right? And so all of these things really started to develop, and people, it only kind of grew from there. I'm going to fast forward. We've got a lot to cover, but I want to fast forward to the late 1800s. And a lot of people have heard of Nikola Tesla, and even more so Albert Einstein. We study Albert Einstein in school, and I know for me growing up, I always thought of this being something that was thousands of years ago, talking about these men in these history books. But really, Albert Einstein didn't pass away until the 50s. Nikola Tesla was here until the 40s. So I mean, this is very current.
We almost overlapped.
Right. And they are really known as kind of the godfathers of energy and frequency, and really bringing this to the world and talking about it and recognizing even the earth having its own frequency. Nikola Tesla, discovered that. And this is how we have cell phones today, right? It all started somewhere, and that is where. So fast forward a little bit further into the 1920s, I want to talk about someone that you may or may not have heard of. His name is Royal Raymond Rife. And this man is most famously known for his invention of the microscope, okay, of a more advanced microscope. So he invented a microscope that could magnify 60,000 times greater than anything we had ever known before. So this started to open up a whole new world in science and, studying germs and bacteria and things that we normally really, only kind of fathomed. We didn't know enough about them and how they worked. So that was pretty progressive. So with that, this man started doing a lot of research on, and I do want you to go in and please, do your own research. And this is just kind of an overview. So please look up these names and do your own research. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background. So he started studying, it started with a breast tumor. Right. And so he was using a breast tumor and he inserted it in rats and kept doing this over and over and over. And what he was discovering was the way that these cells were affected by different light and different frequencies. And so he started realizing about frequency medicine and how it could actually affect the cells. So this was really very groundbreaking at the time. And he did massive studies and, was curing people of cancer.
When was this, Jenny? Just remind us.
This was in the 20s. This was in
so just 100 years ago, right now.
Yeah, just 100 years ago. Okay. And so up until this point, I want you to understand that the universities and people who were doctors going through medical school, these are the kinds of things that they were studying. They were studying homeopathics, homeopathy. They were studying about herbs and different plant-based medicines to
including
help
cannabis, which was part of the pharmacopoeia at that time.
Right. Okay. So here we are. We have, up until this point, we have generations of all of these people who are learning to help people. They want to be doctors. They want to be in society to help people feel better, right? So I'm going to turn it over to Susan in right now because this thing started to shift. Okay. We have a couple of big names that a lot of us know, Carnegie and Rockefeller, and they were, oil tycoons, right? Really big in the oil business, big money. And so this is about the same time that things started to shift and change. Susan, did you want to take over from here?
I'd be happy to. And this is something that I have a lot of feelings about. And I'm still shocked that it was only in recent years that I learned about what we're about to share with you. So again, Jenny was just saying 100 years ago, which we think of as ancient history in some ways, a lot of, medical care and healthcare to me was way more advanced than it is now. What happened in the 1920s was that John D. Rockefeller commissioned a study of medicine in the United States and medical schools. And he had a significant bias. Jenny, feel free to jump in because I may not be up on like all of the specifics, but this was kind of the petrochemical industry was happening. And there was a great financial interest in using some of the byproducts from the petrochemical industry in the production of pharmaceutical medications. A very significant profit motive. And he commissioned a gentleman whose last name is Flexner. Jenny, please remind me of his first name. I should know this off the top.
Albert, I think it was Albert. I'm going to look.
Okay, there was a gentleman who was like a hospital administrator, wasn't a physician himself, but he was paid for and funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, which had, again, this great financial interest.
Abraham
Flexner. Okay, we knew it was an A. So Abraham Flexner, and he did this report after, a period of research that concluded that pharmaceuticals should be the gold standard of medical care. And what occurred?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because something you've just said is really kind of, my brain's going, what?
I know. This is WTF stuff.
Well, yeah, how did they ever make the connection? Petrochemical product, byproduct, medical product. How that combination is not what I would call a natural one. So how
Correct.
was that connected?
Good question, and I don't really have an answer. My sense is, and Laura, you may have some more insight here. They were looking for applications for these byproducts.
Right.
The same,
Oh,
and that's the same way, and we'll handle this another time perhaps, that quote unquote fluoride ended up in our water.
100%,
Okay,
100%. So that's
so
what they do.
it's that, and actually, I think this would be interesting research because many things that we've been told were beneficial when you kind of unwind the whole thing. That's not where it came from at all. But unfortunately, the effect of all of that, and this is another one of those times that we really, really encourage you to do your own research and go search this. It's public information that has not been widely shared. As I said, I didn't hear about this until recent years. But the result of this was that most of the medical schools in the United States were closed. The ones that were practicing what we now consider to be alternatives to the pharmaceutical system. Most of them were closed, and there was a bias, a tremendous bias of the ones that remained open, admitted white males. There were medical schools that had, been part of the historically Black universities. Most of them were closed. And chiropractic, that was one that chiropractic was very much practiced back then. All of these modalities, all of these forms of healing, which here's my bias, really do respect the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. They were very much discredited as snake oil. The physicians and practitioners that were practicing those things lost credibility. The access to training got diminished because all the schools were closed. And I was born at the time, like I said, a little bit of an overlap with these, masterminds that Jenny was talking about. By the time I was born, medicine was pharmaceutical. And I didn't hear about any of this stuff. And, I didn't really hear about Chinese medicine or acupuncture till the 90s when, that started happening. I would add that, the 5,000 years ago that Jenny was citing that the Chinese were working with energy medicine, they were doing that as well in India, the Ayurveda. In fact, in the Ayurveda and acupuncture worlds, there's a little bit of dispute as who started first. I don't engage in that, but they're both very well respected and they speak to each other beautifully, in two different cultural contexts. So anyway, that's a little bit of a contribution that I can make to the timeline. And so one of the things that's going on now, and it seems to be under the name of biohacking, which we're going to let Jenny and Lori elaborate on because they're up to their eyebrows in biohacking, is we're kind of reclaiming this understanding, and Leslie was articulating it beautifully, of taking back the truth of how to maintain the vitality and well-being of our body so that we don't wait for it to break down and require toxic remedies that don't even hide how toxic they are. So I'll just leave with, we've somehow normalized on all of these commercials on television, with the cheery little voice that says, you can cure your toe fungus with this pill. And yes, the side effects could be liver failure and death, but ask your doctor if this is right for you. And that goes over most people's heads. So again, we intended to be a little disruptive. I have a lot of strong feelings about this, and I stand behind them. So, Jenny, I don't know the last time I cracked you up this much.
I just, that was a great impression, Susan. I just wanted to jump in and answer your question a little bit, Leslie. So, Rockefeller initially went over and bought a bunch of patents in Germany. This is kind of where the pharmacology really started, was in Germany, I think. Now, don't quote me on this. Again, do your own research, but I want to go into the memory bank. And so basically what was happening, they were using the homeopathic remedies and things like this, and they were trying to find ways to chemically alter these medicines to do different things in the tissues and such. And so one of the ways they found was through using tar as a substance. So I think that's how it all came about, was using, the petrobiochemicals because of, money and that kind of thing. So I don't think it initially started as, hey, let's create these toxic drugs. I don't think they understood how that would filter through the liver and be unable to be processed and such in the body. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there as well. But it did, when Rockefeller did buy all of these patents and bring them to the US, that is what he thought, okay, how can we leverage this system to it. I'm just going to put it out there. It was all about greed. It was,
Mhm.
I
It's
want
all
to
about
read
money, Jen.
all
It's
about money, all about money. And I just want to
And the
read
patents
something
that they can
before.
get on the pharmaceuticals that none of the natural stuff has access to.
Right. And so before, Lori, before you jump in, I just wanted to read something that I saw on healthline.com, because these are the types of websites that people are getting a lot of their information from. And like Susan was saying, the American Medical Association was made up of white males who would buy stocks in these drug companies before they said the drug was okay. It was strictly about money. It was very corrupt. But on healthline.com you can read something such as, allopathic medicine or mainstream medicine is a system of healthcare. It has had the most evidence-based scientific research, data collection, and drug testing. It's also the most regulated by a neutral party like the FDA or the AMA.
Okay, I have to, Lori, and then I'll shut up. But as I shared with my co-hosts here, I was hired 12 plus years ago to ghostwrite a book um, here in the US about why holistic medicine was a solution to the economic crisis, because we have the highest healthcare disease care costs here and the lowest health. And it was crippling corporate America. So that's when I started to do a lot of this research. And some of the research I did also just talked about the FDA and how unbelievably corrupt it is, and how slanted the studies are, and blah, blah, blah. So the gold standards that we've been given are so unworthy that it's dangerous. And Lori, I'm sorry, please. I'd
Oh,
love to hear
that's
what you
okay.
have to add to this. It's hard for me to shut up about this topic.
That's just it. We're all pretty, charged about it because we've been studying it, and I've known this stuff for the last 2.5, 3 decades, something in that
Right.
vicinity. And I was astounded when I first learned about it. And over the years, I keep hearing more and more and more. And it's all similar stuff to what my holistic doctor back in, gosh, let's just say 30 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, first told me all these things. But there was a movie that came out about 10 years ago called Thrive. And in that movie, the central theme when they're talking about pharmaceuticals is follow the money stream. If you want to know the issues in our society, any of them, really, not just medical, follow the money stream. Okay, so here's where the problem comes in. The AMA started as a union. What does a union do? A union is designed to protect its members. So it was designed to protect the doctors and the people that were making money. The whole idea behind eliminating some of these holistic things like Ayurveda and chiropractic and things of that ilk,
Homeopathy, yep.
right, wasn't that they didn't work, wasn't that they couldn't do scientific studies on it. It was that they couldn't make money on it. Whereas with these patents that were acquired and the petrochemicals that they were using, maybe they didn't know ultimately that it was going to be, hurting our health to
Or
the
maybe
level.
they did.
Or maybe they did. I mean, they knew cigarettes were bad and they covered that up for years. because Philip Morris was like one of the biggest contributors to the AMA. So when they did studies and found out that cigarette smoking actually caused cancer, like what did they do? They put this whole advertising campaign together about doctors smoking Camels and how they would go through packs and packs a week. I mean, we have been fed such a line of crap over these decades that it's ridiculous. And the whole thing has literally spun out of control. And we are sitting here with a generation of people who blindly trusts anyone who is wearing a white coat. And I have some of my best friends are medical doctors. And I do think that there is a place for traditional medicine.
That's not traditional. There's a
Right.
place for pharmaceutical medicine, modern medicine. It is not traditional. Let's get our terms straight.
Mm.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a friend whose husband just had a heart transplant. If you saw how many drugs he was hooked up to after that heart transplant, and I'm sure a lot of that at that moment in time was necessary. So there's reasons and points where
Yep.
things are, but we had so many things that were around for thousands of years that still exist. And now here's the thing. We got to switch. The thing I want our listeners to really get is that the average doctor does not continue their education. They go and they get this degree, they go to medical school, they go through years and years and years, and then they practice. They're too busy practicing to keep up on the latest research. I have conversations with my friend who's an MD all the time. And I say, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And she's blown away. Every time I go see my own doctor, she's just kind of sitting back going, I wonder what she's going to tell me about today. I taught my doctor about epigenetics. I taught my doctor about redox signaling molecules. And that's the other thing. When you get involved in these non-traditional forms of medicine, you need to let your doctors know you're doing that, because some of it is going to impact what they're doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when the new administration gets into office, which is going to happen before this podcast is released. And there's a lot of talk about RFK exposing a lot of this. And, fingers crossed, because we need to wake up, people. We need to wake up and smell the roses and realize that we've been sold a load of crap. And that if you really, really, really want to get healthy, you have got to take back the control. Realize how powerful you are. Realize that you are energy. Realize that your thoughts and your emotions and what you ingest in supplements and diet, all of those things are impacting your health. Clearing up your subconscious is going to impact in a positive way. I mean, we're looking at the topic of epigenetics, which is a fabulous, fabulous modality that I know my co-hosts are going to let me talk about in more depth on another episode. But
Can't wait.
I know, right? But in the meantime, stay tuned, because we live in very interesting times. And if RFK does half the stuff he has claimed that he's going to do, it's going to be super, super interesting. And this isn't about politics.
Nope,
This
not at
is
all.
about facts
Yeah.
and the reality of what we've been told versus the reality of what is. And I know when we say that research is the key to your health, a lot of you are going to want to jump on Google. Now, I'm begging you to understand Google is not a medical search engine. Google Scholar, perhaps, PubMed.gov, perhaps, but not just Google, because that's controlled too.
Right.
Maybe I don't know, but maybe by the AMA, no, probably not. I don't know. I'm just getting sassy.
Well, Lori, what you mentioned the Thrive movie, and I just want to underscore that for a minute, and we'll include that information, I believe, in the show notes, because that movie was it was my eye opener, probably about 11, 12 years ago, that most of these entities are owned by just a handful of huge companies. So, when we were talking about the patents and the drug companies and the doctors, these are not independent entities at all. So, you know, if you're interested in following the money, that's how you can start. That movie was where most of us got our eye-opening. But I want to introduce the audience to just one other thing that I would invite them to research that I think belongs as part of this topic. And it is the word, it's a word, iatrogenic. I'm going to spell it for you. It's Iatrogenic, iatrogenic. And if you look that up, the definition is disease caused by medical treatment. This is not malpractice. That's when somebody did something quote unquote wrong. This is disease that results from correct medical treatment, side effects of medications and interactions, and people following correctly what their doctors told them to do. And I couldn't find the statistic when I was preparing for today, probably because I was looking on Google, Lori, but I do remember in the past seeing that statistic that even the Journal of the American Medical Association listed iatrogenic disease as the third leading cause of death in the United States after cancer and heart disease. So I couldn't find that statistic. I did see others when I was researching. So again, I invite everybody to look up that word. It's recognized that pharmaceutical medicine, modern medicine, can be very dangerous.
Can I give
And
examples of that? Two
please,
very
you were
simple
sharing
examples.
something recently, Leslie, so
Yeah,
this is perfect. Thank you.
absolutely. And my examples could happen to anybody. And this is why it's really important to understand your body and to understand what you are putting into your body, either because you've chosen to or it's been told that you should be taking it. Beginning of last year, I had a fairly large cyst develop underneath my armpit. I'd had it before. It was basically a blackhead that would clear and would come back, clear and come back. And normally, if I took antibiotics, it would clear and it wouldn't come back for about 2 years or so. So I didn't do anything about it until it was a really big, painful cyst. Went to the doctors, put me onto antibiotics, and for the first time ever, the antibiotics did nothing, did not touch it, did not clear it whatsoever. And I couldn't understand. Every night for about 3 years, I've been taking magnesium supplements, as lots of ladies of a certain age do, to help with sleep, to help with joints, etc., etc. One evening, I Googled, was there a reason taking magnesium could stop the antibiotics from working? Absolutely. Magnesium stops antibiotics from working. I didn't know that. My doctor hadn't asked me, are you on magnesium tablets? Then about 8 weeks ago, out of the blue, I'm on HRT, out of the blue, my GP texted me to say they were changing my HRT pill from one type of pill to another type of pill. I didn't think anything of it other than, oh, it's probably a cheaper brand, because here in the UK, we pay for our prescriptions, but only a very nominal amount, basically. And over a period of time, I started to get a really, really, really upset stomach, requiring lots of visits to the toilet. I'll say no more than that. My skin started to really badly dry out like sandpaper. I did a bowel test because I was worried I had bowel cancer. I went into almost catastrophizing because it was so bad. Couldn't leave the house, had to be close to a toilet. The bowel test came back fine. I thought, well, what the heck can it be? About 5 weeks later, I thought, I'm going to make an appointment to go and see my doctor. I'd made the appointment. They couldn't see me until the following week. And literally, when I'd made that appointment, my brain delivered to me, literally, that change of pill. But could it be that? I looked it up on ChatGPT, not on Google, because I didn't want all the adverts and all of that. But ChatGPT clearly said, this particular pill is known to cause stomach upset. If you have a stomach upset for more than 7 days, go and see a doctor. This was 5 weeks later. I stupidly didn't, but it got progressively worse. As I stopped taking it immediately, within 48 hours, no more problems.
Wow.
I am never, ever, ever again accepting any change to my medication because that caused the problem. I thought they were doing the right thing. The GP probably also thought they were doing the right thing, but in introducing a cheaper brand, it caused problems to my body. So I wanted to just give two very simple examples there of allowing somebody else to take control of your body. I'm very healthy, fortunately, overall. I want to manage my health. I don't want somebody else to make me well. I want to manage myself to be healthy, not put my illness in the hands of somebody else unless I really need to and don't have the ability to manage it better for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, I think what you just said is very powerful for our audience because, as probably they may deduce, of the group of us here, Jenny and Lori and I have been in this field, in this wellness paradigm for a long time. Leslie's genius has been more on the financial side. And as we've been getting to know each other over the last year or so, a lot of this stuff has been new to her. So she's probably started, in terms of her mindset and her information base, closer to many of you than we are. And really has been sharing her journey of like, wow, I'm glad that I now know to ask these questions because as very legitimate, we're all individual. Leslie's view about this is not nearly as radical as mine. and
Yes.
no, but that's important. We each come
Yeah.
at this differently, and it's not that I'm right or she's right. We all have a different relationship with our body, and we all come in with different traumas and whatever. I think what's common here that we want to offer to everyone is the invitation to be questioning things, the information that we're providing here to support you with illuminating some of the lies and propaganda and things that we've been given and providing different perspectives for you to find your own truth. Because again, Leslie's perspective is different from mine, and it may be exactly the right one for you. And then the information that we've got here, which, Jenny, thank you for, kicking us off with the context, because I'm just, we shared a lot today. So how do we want to wrap up?
I just wanted to, touch on what Leslie was saying as well, because I think, people can get their backups when we talk about these things and when we mention, doctors and doing your own research and things like that. And I just want to be really clear because based on what we have talked about and, things that have happened in the past and when the Flexner Report came out, and, homeopathy was getting canceled and people like Royal Rife were being labeled as quacks. Anyone who was doing anything that we now think of alternative, which back then, like that was what was natural. That was what was, closer to nature and to our bodies, were deemed as quacks and were written up in journals as such. And thrown in jail if they continued to practice. And so because of that, we have generations who have been, lost on a lot of this information. Going to school, these doctors, they weren't even privy to the word frequency medicine or energy medicine. This is something that they were just taught pharmaceuticals and how to push these pills and how to be, how to present something that was going to help your symptom and help you, alleviate this symptom. right? And so that's why when you hear us say sick care system, that's what we mean. Because it's not that they were trying to cure anything, because as we now know, symptom suppression causes even more havoc in the body. So what we do is we try to get to the root cause, which is what I think this conversation was doing, getting to the root of, where this all starts and where we can kind of start our conversation. Lori, I know you have some more to input with that.
You can tell I'm like, I want to just leave you guys with hope today, because
Absolutely.
my amazing friend and colleague, Kenneth Close, has been asked to speak this weekend. So as we're recording, this coming weekend is the inaugural weekend for the presidency of the United States. And they're having events all weekend long. And he's been asked to speak at a leadership conference on Saturday. And the topic is simply making America healthy again. Now, I do another podcast with Ken, and we refer to ourselves as your favorite epigenetic geeks. So, he's progressive. He's alternative. He believes in all the stuff that we've been sharing with you here in this podcast. So I think that is phenomenal that someone as progressive as Ken has been asked to speak at this event. And yes, Ken, I love you, and I'm going to reel you back so that everybody can understand what you're saying this weekend. And the other thing I would say is that in our last episode, we actually interviewed Teresa Lally, and her publishing company, Biohack Yourself Media, is the health coverage for that event as well. So there's a lot of really, I'm getting goosebumps all over, progressive, forward-moving things that are about to happen. So stay tuned, folks. It's going to get wild. You better hold on to your chakras.
So exciting. Wow.
And Leslie,
to share all this.
yes, and we have lots of friends in the UK, and you being our closest right here with us. And anyone out there listening who is across the globe or in the UK, please join us in our Facebook group, because I would love to hear your perspective on what how things work wherever it is in the world you are, and your perspective on pharmaceuticals and things that we've talked to today. Let's continue this conversation because it is a juicy one. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us today, and we really look forward to seeing you next time on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed, where we empower women to take control of the two most important areas of their life, their health and their wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another amazing woman who's ready to elevate her wealth and wellness journey. Stay connected with us by heading to our website and joining our Facebook community. All the details can be found in the show notes. Until next time, keep thriving and unleashing your highest potential.